All right, folks, welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm with Dr. Bill Salus, founder of Prophecy Depot Ministries. We're going to be speaking about prophecy today, things that are coming, what he sees coming in the future, where we're at now. Lots of stuff unfolding, folks. And he's the author of 11 books. I wrote one book, and that was hard enough. This guy's written 11 books. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Nino, thank you for having me on your program.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw one of your videos and I was intrigued by it. In fact, I think it was a short, and I reached out to my publicist and I said, "Hey, man, we got to bring this guy on here." I bring a lot of people on, prophetics and people that talk about things, biblical scripture, and where we're at and where we're headed, a time analyst and things like that. And I like to bring everyone's point of views on here because I believe we're heading into this pinnacle, this climax, right? It just anybody who's a blind man can see this, how it's unfolding. I don't know where you want to start with this, but let's go ahead and start with Trump, where we're at now, and where you see all this going. It's kind of a loaded question there for you, but I'll let you unpack it.
Well, yeah, let's do that. It's a great starting point, Nino. And I do think Trump, of course, is a critical player right now, especially when it comes to catalyzing probably the fulfillment of some biblical prophecies that have been about ready to roll off their ancient parchments and pound down on the world pavement, especially in the Middle East. He's got this great relationship going with Israel. He's been trying to develop these relationships with the Abraham Accords of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, etc. And so it's a very important time to be talking about Donald Trump and the prophecies related to Israel and Saudi Arabia and things like that, especially Iran. He's trying to negotiate a deal with Iran rather than have Israel strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Will that pan out? Right now, this is a very big question. And now he's trying to even involve perhaps Vladimir Putin with Russia to get involved in this negotiations with this nuclear deal. So very, very concerning at this point in time. But as far as Donald Trump goes in Israel, he's probably one of the most favorable presidents that Israel's ever had supporting them. Remember his first term, they minted the Sanhedrin in Israel, minted a coin that imposed him on top of Cyrus, King Cyrus the Persian, was one of the noted kings of the Bible who helped Israel, the Jews, return to their land during the Persian conquest over the Babylonians back in 539 BC. So they really like him. They thought that he would help them build their third Jewish temple, which is also a biblical prophecy. So we'll see where that goes as well. But he's the most favorable president in Israel's history at this point in time.
And with that being said, folks, get your noble gold. Here's the hard truth. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That 100,000 in savings today could feel like 50,000 by the year 2031. But there's a way to protect and preserve your money, and that's gold, folks. Noble Gold Investments makes it easy to own gold or silver. No pressure, no call centers, just honest one-on-one support. Open a qualified account today and get a 10-ounce free silver American flag bar. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Noblegoldinvestments.com, folks. Get over there now. All right. So this has all been prophesized, right? Everything that's kind of happening right now, everything's kind of been laid out. So if it's been prophesized and it's leading to the beast system, right? I mean, so really none of this, I mean, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but none of this is good. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, we're heading into the golden age. But what is the golden age if this is all going to this beast system?
Yeah, you're correct. Now that does come a little bit down the road here. There's a 12-stage timeline of the end times. And presently we're in stage one, the church age. Now, when the rapture happens, I personally believe that Jesus will come in the rapture event before the tribulation period starts, the 7-year tribulation period. And that's when the wrath of God gets poured out through a series of 21 judgments in the book of Revelation, the seven seal judgments, the seven trumpet judgments, and the seven bowl judgments. And those are devastating to the planet. But we're not quite there yet. Now, that's when the Antichrist will surface on the scene. He'll become the world leader, establish his beast system, especially in the mid part of that tribulation period, where he will set up his image in the Jewish temple, the image of the beast, as in Revelation chapter 13. And he'll have a false prophet with him, and they will cause people to worship him. And as a loyalty for them worshiping him, They'll receive a mark upon their right hand or upon their forehead, which will enable them to buy or sell in this cashless economy. But that's not quite there. That's down the road in a few stages on the 12-stage timeline. Then you're going to have this
Well,
rapture
I
stage.
was gonna just let me ask you this real quick. Do you think this all has to do with, I mean, where we're at with artificial intelligence? We know that they still want to play this alien card. They're gonna say, extraterrestrials are our gods, something along those lines. This is all yet to come, correct?
Yeah, but it's definitely stage setting right now in the very near future. I think when we start to see these biblical prophecies roll off their ancient parchments in the very near future, they're going to happen sequentially and in rapid succession. The last prophecy we really saw fulfilled was in 1948 when Israel became a nation. But when the next series of prophecies find fulfillment, which will be very much Israel centered, they're going to happen rapidly. And ultimately, it will lead toward the arrival of the Antichrist on the scene. Now, what's interesting is that it says in Second Thessalonians chapter 2, time's going to come where Satan's going to be no longer restrained to unleash supernatural signs, lying and deceiving signs, supernatural wonders, which people will be perpetrating what the Bible calls the lie that people will believe in through the supernatural deception. Now that's what is that the lie, the definite article. Some of us would believe, like you're saying, what would be the game changer for this humanity would be that, hey, you're not alone in this universe. You'd have these extraterrestrials come down that are not really extraterrestrials, they're fallen angels, and they've known about this. Satan's been planning this since 54 A.D. when this letter to the Thessalonians first came out. He's been planning this for almost 2,000 years. Supernatural deception, signs, and lying wonders.
But
And I believe it's possible
they can use the artificial intelligence as the deception. I
they
mean,
can.
getting so good now, we can't tell what's real and fake.
Well, they can use that in combination with just showing up themselves. UFOs showing up and that sort of thing, which it's already a phenomenon that's very well recognized as being a real phenomenon. They can harness that all together, along with all the other technologies, the digital currencies, blockchain technologies, and all that sort of thing. The Antichrist, I'm sure, will harness all that in his system.
So this is all going to come in rapid fire, right? It's not going to take, I've been told the artificial intelligence now, like what took, internet from 1995, 96 to 2025 is going to take AI a quarter of the time to get to where it needs to be. Like by the year 2030, we won't even recognize anything anymore.
Well, when I grew up, I was born in 1953, and we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have fax machines. And now we're talking about things going exponentially at a fast pace, the technologies from pagers onto cell phones, onto, global GPS, onto artificial intelligence. It's all happening so rapidly. What's going to be happening, like you said, 5 years from now? It's going to be even exponentially, even faster and better and more
So
usable.
wouldn't the rapture have to happen before then? I mean, because it's going to be to the point that how would we even know what's real and what's not? And the odds are going to be stacked against us, especially the younger generations.
Well, in my estimation, it probably would. That's probably one of the next things on my timeline I'm watching for. There's several prophecies that'll happen before the tribulation, probably about 20 of them. But one of them at the top of my list is the rapture. I'm hoping for that, the glorious appearing of the Lord to whisk his bride up into the clouds to be with him forever in the rapture event. Because the church is not appointed to the wrath that's going to come in the tribulation, will be delivered from it, or to comfort one another with those words, according to many verses. So I do think that could be where we're going, because the wrath of God is going to come through the tribulation period. And we see that period is rapidly approaching. And we don't necessarily know at this point in time who the Antichrist is going to be. He appears on the scene after the church disappears, and he comes out of the revived Roman Empire, according to Daniel chapter 9. But Satan's always had to have this point man on the scene. He's probably alive and well today. He doesn't really know who he is, but Satan knows who he's going to choose if the rapture were to happen at this point in time.
So where are we at right now, according to your, I guess, your estimations? Where do you think we're at with Trump right now? How does this play out in prophecy? If we're going through stages of this. So right now we're in the Trump's trying to bring peace to the Middle East. I think Trump's fulfilling a lot of prophecy with crypto, the AI now, Palantir. I, I mean, it's a lot of big moves are being made under Trump.
Yeah, I think that the peace in the Middle East is not going to happen politically. It's not going to be politically brokered. According to biblical prophecy, it's going to be military. The Israeli Defense Forces exist in fulfillment of numerous biblical prophecies that have not found fulfillment. And the prophecies involve Iran, Syria, Damascus, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, Lebanon, the Hamas in Gaza, the Hezbollah in Lebanon. And there's many prophecies that talk about the Israeli Defense Forces taking them to task. I'll give you an example. One is in Isaiah 17, talks about Damascus, capital of Syria, the oldest continuously inhabited city in recorded history, goes back as far as the time of Abraham, 4,000 years ago. We're told in Isaiah 17:1 that one day the burden against Damascus, behold, Damascus will cease from being a city. It will be a ruinous heap. We find out in verse 9 of Isaiah 17 that the desolation is caused by the children of Israel, the IDF. Find out in verse 14, the reality is that it happens one night you see Damascus, but in the morning it's no more, it's gone. This is a portion of those who rob us and those who plunder us, meaning in self-defense overnight. And Israel has the technologies overnight to destroy a city with a nuclear weapon burst at a certain burst altitude. They can take out the city but not contaminate the whole environment. Maybe about 45 miles of burst altitude. I'm not exactly sure how high it is, but I'm not a physicist. But it happens overnight, and Israel is responsible for the destruction of Damascus. And Israel's been bombing Damascus for a long time. And now there's a new leadership in Syria. But even recently, they've been bombing Israel as well in the Golan Heights, trying to get Israel out of that area. So we see that we don't know who was going to be in power at the time. Was it going to be Assad, who's no longer there? Is it going to be Shira, who's there now? But the prophecy is about to find fulfillment, in my estimation, and that will trigger a whole domino effect on other prophecies.
I see that Israel has acquired the red heifers for sacrifice. I don't know when they're going to be sacrificed. I thought they were going to be sacrificed about a year ago, but they seem to have these red heifers now that I think it's almost like, to me, it seems like they're trying to manufacture and push forward this prophecy. It doesn't feel like it's happening organically at all, because the red heifers were farmed here in America by a rancher. They were bred here, sent to Israel. I mean, what do you have to say about that? I mean, aren't we really close if they've got the red heifers, and I guess the next step would be to build the temple, correct?
Correct. This is a really good point. We have super signs. A super sign is that all the end time signs are converging. This tells us we're deep into the end times. And one of those end time signs is the building of the tribulation temple. And they've got the priesthood is already established. They've got the Sanhedrin. They already know who the high priest is going to be. They've got all the temple implements. They got the table of showbread. They got all the things they need to do the offerings and sacrifices. They needed the red heifers because it's part of the purification process of reinstating the Mosaic law. Now they've got those. So just another sign that everything is coming together and converging at this point. So there's just no denying that we're in the end times, like you said at the beginning. It's quite obvious now that everything's setting up at this point.
So we know it's going to have to happen during the red heifer's lifetime. So that's what, 5, 10 years from now? It's going to have to happen within their lifetime, right? So we can kind of narrow the window down.
But they're chomping at the bit to build their temple. Again, Trump's president. First term, they thought he would help them build the temple back then in his first term. So they're certainly hoping that will happen in the very near future. Very well could, Nino. I mean, and then, by the way, there's turn your viewers' attention to a great book on that subject by Mondo Gonzalez of Prophecy Watchers about the red heifer. They can find that at prophecywatchers.com.
So what happens with the red heifers? They sacrifice them and then they build the temple, or how does this work out with the temple? How does this go lockstep with the temple?
Well, they're ready to start doing sacrifices on a moment's notice. They don't have to have a temple to start doing the sacrifices. They can construct an altar and start doing the sacrifices. Now, if they do want to, of course, ultimately build their temple and have those sacrifices and offerings therein. And this talk is now that temple could be built as quickly as in 1 year. Now, I personally think that the content of the false covenant that starts the tribulation period in Daniel 9:27 has nothing to do with the Arab-Israeli conflict, It has everything to do with the Jews wanting the ability to build that third temple. So once that covenant gets confirmed, the tribulation will start, and immediately they'll start to construct their temple. But they won't wait for the temple to be constructed to start the sacrificial system. They can start that immediately once they feel they can.
Where is the temple going to be built?
I personally believe it's going to be built right where the Temple Mount is, right above the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, where the Dome of the Rock is. So they've got to deal with that. And they're not going to build around it. They're going to eliminate the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And that'll happen as a conclusion of these wars with Israeli defense forces against the Arabs. They're going to take out Jordan. They're going to take out Egypt. They're going to take out Iran, etc. And they're going to be very successful.
They need to take out Iran. So we got to look forward to that. So that's coming.
Yeah. Well, we have a prophecy. There's two prophecies of Iran. They've got double trouble in the end times. One is they're listed as Persia in Ezekiel chapter 38. That's many reviewers might be familiar with that Gog of Magog invasion. But prior to that, there's another one in Jeremiah chapter 49, verses 34 through 39, dealing with Elam, ancient Elam. Now, when you look at a modern day map of Iran, you have Elam hugs the Persian Gulf on the southwest side, comprises about a third of modern day Iran. But Persia consists of the other 2/3. Now, Jeremiah wrote around 596 BC, the prophet, he wrote about Elam, and about 2 decades later, Ezekiel writes about Persia. Two different prophecies. Now, the prophecy about Iran sounds like a nuclear disaster, because what we're told is that the time's going to come, and it's 66 verses, and I can summarize it real quickly if that's okay. But
yes.
What's going to happen is the time's going to come when the Lord gets fiercely angry with the leaders of Iran. We find that out because he says he's going to destroy from there the kings and the princes. And we find out, well, why is he angry with these? Because they're bad leaders. Because they want to launch something lethal somewhere. We're told the Lord's going to break the bow with the foremost of their might, meaning their missile launching capabilities. And those missile launching capabilities are all pretty much centered in this Elam territory. And so Israel is preparing to strike this territory, take out these missile launchers. And of course, at the foremost of the might could be a nuclear bomb scenario. That could be what was being alluded to there. And it says that after this, it says it'll bring about a disaster. And then it says, I'll bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven. And I will scatter all the Elamites, the indigenous population, into all those winds, meaning worldwide dispersion. It says there'll be no nations where the outcasts of Elam don't go. So whatever happens in this disaster, because the Lord's fiercely angry, it's going to create probably a humanitarian crisis, maybe a nuclear disaster.
Mass immigration to all countries.
That's right. And we're also told
that's what's going to happen.
Well, in that area right there, they've already struck the Isfahan facility. That's Iran's largest nuclear research facility. Natanz is there, Iran's primary enrichment facility. Bashar nuclear reactors there, one of their big nuclear reactors. And Shiraz is all in this territory, Iran's special weapons and missile development facility. So when this happens, that's going to be one of the first places they have to go through to get to the other Fordow and other nuclear facilities, because that's where all the defense systems are, all the missiles are. They're pointed at Israel. I believe that this prophecy is about to find fulfillment, and it will be a major deal, because you'll start to see humanitarian crisis, etc.
So Israel has been itching to attack Iran. And if you look at Diego Garcia base, tons of bombers are there right now. There's a lot of activity at Diego Garcia base, which would be in position to strike Iran. So what you're telling me is once Iran gets hit, then bam, everything's going to fall like dominoes.
I believe so, because the prophecies, when they happen, are going to happen in rapid succession. One thing is going to lead to another, like a domino effect. And following on the heels of that, you're going to have, who knows what's going to happen? Is Syria going to get destroyed? Are we going to have the other Arab-Israeli wars that I alluded to? There's a Psalm 83 prophecy that talks about an Arab confederacy that wants to come together, includes all the countries that share common borders with Israel: Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Of course, the Palestinians would be in there.
So when we see Iran get hit, that's the first domino to fall. Then we'll know it's time.
I think that's the next one. I really do. And then I think maybe Isaiah 17, we talked about Syria's destruction, and the final Arab confederacy coming against Israel in Psalm 83, that says they come together, Their motive is they want to cut Israel off from being a nation, that the name of Israel can be remembered no more. They form a confederacy. And then the players I listed are those, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, etc. There's fragile peace treaties between Israel and Jordan and Egypt, but I show prophecies in my Psalm 83 book that there'll be wars and those treaties will no longer be there, and Israel Defense Forces will go to war against Egypt and Jordan. So all these things are about to change. I think it's going to be destruction of Iran's nuclear facilities. Probably that Jeremiah prophecy would be fulfilled in that. And then Isaiah 17, probably the destruction of Damascus could be before or after that. Then I think the final Arab-Israeli Confederacy will come together in Psalm 83. And they take a final siege on Judah and Jerusalem, and Zechariah 12:2 is to become a cup of trembling to the surrounding peoples, not the nations at large. We're told in Zechariah 12:6 that when that happens, the IDF will be like the battlefield will be like a fire pan in the woodpile. The IDF will be like a fiery torch, and the Arab peoples around them will be like sheaves, and they will devour them on the left hand and the right hand. So you're going to see the IDF emerge as an exceedingly great army in fulfillment of Ezekiel 37, verse 10. And that's going to be an amazing thing to watch. Now, meanwhile, what about Christ? He's yearning to come get his bride. He's waiting for the Heavenly Father to say, go get your bride, go fetch her. That could happen in the middle of any of these events we're talking about, because that's a signless event. And so, again, we need to be ready for all of the above.
So does the rapture come before this war gets kicked off worldwide? During? And what about the aliens? When do the aliens come? Before or after the rapture? They probably have to come after the rapture, correct?
Okay, so yes, a series of questions there. The rapture, can't date set because we're not given a date or a time. It could happen before, during, or after any one of these numerous prophecies that we're starting to talk about. As far as the alien scenario, they're already kind of appearing through the canopy of the environment.
Right.
And basically, I think that's going to continue. I think there's going to be more Mary apparitions as well. The apparitions of the Catholic Church, Mary. She's promised she's going to return again. So we're going to have supernatural things happening, but that's going to happen after the rapture, and when Satan is no longer restrained to deceive humanity, to perpetrate the lie through supernatural signs and lying wonders. So I think we're going to see more, probably get more soft disclosure on the UFO phenomena. They're going to appear as though they're aliens from another planet to try to shoot the biblical narrative out the window that you're not alone in this universe. But I don't think they're
That's
full
where the
throttle.
Antichrist. Do you think that's where the Antichrist comes in?
Yeah,
Right.
he'll
Going to
be
be
part
a
of that.
lowercase g God come in and say we created humanity, blah blah blah. Do you think that's how that gets spun? And they save us from ourselves. They save us from the war.
Yeah, because part of the supernatural deception is to deceive humanity that they would believe the lie, but it also is to prop up the man of lawlessness, the man of sin, different names for the Antichrist. And so part and parcel with his rise to world leadership is going to be the supernatural signs and lying wonders that empower that process. So when after he's no longer restrained, everything happens really quickly. Now, after the rapture, there's a gap between the rapture and the tribulation period, because it's not the rapture that starts the 7-year tribulation clock ticking. It's the confirmation of the false covenant in Daniel 9:27 and Isaiah 28 verse 15. We don't know how long that gap's going to be, but immediately after the rapture, Satan's going to start perpetrating supernatural deception. And that's when I think you're going to start seeing the Mary apparitions, perhaps even the UFO disclosure, full disclosure, UFO mile-wide spacecraft hanging over Johannesburg or whatever we might find there. And it's all going to work in tandem with Satan's deceptive program that he's been planning for about 2,000 years.
Do you think it could be hologram technology? I mean, technology within our government? Are they actual beings? Are they going to be actual beings? Are they going to be artificial intelligence lies that we just see on the TV? Or do you think this is going to be actual extraterrestrials? Or are they obviously they'd be the fallen, correct? They'd be demonic entities coming here to masquerade as aliens, correct?
I concur with
That's the
your
lie
latter.
right there, right?
I concur. They're going to be real beings. They're going to be fallen angels. They're going to try to deceive humanity, like you said, through panspermia, saying, listen, we created you. We've created many other people on different planets. We've seen those planets come and go. We don't want you guys to go like to fall like they have. We come back to save the planet. They're going to harness the technologies available because they're smart beings. They're very intelligent. AI will be much more advanced even than it is now. They're going to empower the Antichrist, who's going to basically take the offer to be, okay, I'll be the world leader. Now, Satan offered at the time of Jesus that he could give him all the kingdoms of the world, and Jesus rejected that. But this guy's going to accept that offer. And he's going to be accepting it at a time when there's all kinds of advanced technologies and fallen angels coming to the earth posing as extraterrestrials. They're not going to look like fallen angels. That would not work for Satan's program. So they will deceive humanity.
They're gonna look like. Do you think they'll look human? They'll just be giants? Will they be gray aliens? It could be all the above, right?
It can be all the above. The demons will probably be put together in the kind of the gray suits that Satan's trying to concoct for them. But and those are probably the spirits of the Nephilim back in Genesis chapter 6, probably the demons. But the fallen angels won't be in the gray suits. They're going to be looking pretty powerful in my estimation.
Probably giants, beautiful people,
Probably, yeah.
Nordic looking people. I mean, I would imagine, who knows? Your imagination could run wild. I guess that's why they are propelling this lie so much on TV with ancient aliens and really getting the public to get behind the conditioning or get the conditioning process of accepting this narrative, right? That they're always pushing this stuff on ancient aliens on the History Channel and things of that nature. Am I right in saying that?
I think you're
Part of
right.
the conditioning process.
I think you're right. Satan knows that his time is about to be unleashed where he is no longer restrained. And he's been preparing humanity for this very thing through programs like that. So I would concur with you.
So, for my audience, what they need to take away from this podcast is ancient aliens has been conditioning you for a long time for such a time as now. And look at Iran. We need to watch Iran, correct, Dr. Bill Salus?
Yeah, I think this is a big deal. We're going to wake up one morning, probably in the very near future, and find out that the negotiations for Iran's nuclear program have failed. And Israel, and maybe Israel and the U.S., have attacked Iran's nuclear facilities and devastated them, perhaps to the point where actually a disaster happens on the West Coast in fulfillment of a biblical prophecy. So I concur.
You know, everything that's been happening in Eastern Europe, and I got to be kind of vague here for YouTube, but, a lot of people are saying NATO was behind all of that with what happened in Moscow, and Trump didn't know about it. So, is it possible Israel bombs Iran without Trump knowing about it?
Very possible. They may go it alone. They'd prefer not to. They're trying to be cooperative with Trump's negotiation plans, but he's sort of compromising them at this point in time. And they know they've got to do it. They've got to do this. They've got to stop Iran from enriching the nuclear program. So I think they're ready to go. I have an article at prophecydepot.com about the 9 reasons Israel will likely soon strike Iran's nuclear facilities. You can get that at prophecydepot.com.
Prophecydepot.com. All right, folks, you know where to go. Man, Dr. Bill, I really appreciate you coming on. Can I have you on again pretty soon?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
The world starts to end.
Who knows what'll happen by the next show?
I know. It's happening so fast. I mean, geez. I appreciate you coming on, Dr. Bill Salus. Folks, go to prophecydepot.com and there's a whole plethora of stuff they could check out there, right?
Absolutely. Articles, video shows. We have a YouTube channel as well. If you just type in Bill Salus, SALUS, they can get to our channel.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bill. Stay with me for a second. See you later, folks.